had a great run with season one, and here we are today with Up Close and Covered with Prudential. My name is Kalenga, also known as K Plus, also known as the Podfather. But for the purposes of this one, call me Kalenga. It's the Up Close Uncovered with Prudential, and season two. We had a great run in season one, like I said earlier. And if there's one man that we didn't have in season one, who I'm happy that we're starting season two with, it's the CEO himself. Kachiza, welcome to your own podcast.
No, thank you. It's my absolute pleasure to be here. Season one, you guys were too cool for me, but I'm glad.
Or you were too busy for us.
Bit of both, but I'm glad to be here.
We're happy you've made some time for us.
Amazing.
Kachiza, getting straight into it. I just found out today that you call her Prudence.
That's
the
right.
lady in the logo.
That's right.
Did the name of the company come from her, or did her name come from the name of the company, Prudential?
Good question. I'd say it's a bit of both.
Okay.
But all of it is really grounded in who we are, Prudential.
Right.
And it's all about prudence, right? And we boast a history of being prudent and planning our business and serving our customers in blocks of years, 10, 20, 30. What we do is very long term. But apart from it being very long term, we have a pedigree of coming back from over 176 years. One of the things we pride ourselves in is having been the ones that paid out the claims for the Titanic. And beyond the Titanic, there are many events that have happened throughout
In
history.
1912, you guys
Absolutely
paid the
right.
people who survived from the Titanic.
Yes, we did. And even those that lost lives, their families were compensated by Prudential. In addition to that, World War I, World War II marked some significant parts in our history. And I'm happy to let you know that about 5 years ago, we paid out the last of the claims that we could for people whose heritage we traced. So we had people who had policies and they lost their lives, and we took it upon ourselves to look for that genealogy and sort of find people and trace them and say, look, your great-grandfather had a policy. We were not able to pay out to him, obviously, or the next of kin after that, but you're now entitled, and here's money for you, compounded with interest from the time it should have been paid out. And people were thinking, you've come all the way to pay us this money. Well, it's your money. We're just stewards of your,
Wait, for a tragedy that happened in 1912, and you go around looking for these people to pay them out, that's so much effort. There's a lot of effort being put into that.
There is. And that's what we're about. We exist to pay claims.
Do you put in that much effort, even to this day, like in this Zambian setup, where if, say, I had a policy or somebody had a policy that they even forgot about, they died, they didn't tell me in their will that they left me something, are you still going to look for me with that same effort that you did with the Titanic survivors?
We are, like I said, in the business of paying claims. That's what we exist for every life and for every future.
Okay. Yeah, you're prudent, as your name suggests. Could you tell me something? As a CEO, you're a CEO. Are you a CEO, MD, manager, lead strategist? What do you prefer to go with?
I'm a bit of everything, but I like to say that I'm responsible for nothing, accountable for everything.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Now, as the leader of Prudential, I'd like to find out from you in your position, what role do you think CEOs and business leaders have in shifting mindsets around, financial strategies, and especially around tough conversations like death, something that nobody wants to talk about, especially when it's relating to their own lives, you know what I mean? Right. Personal lives, yeah.
I mean, everything starts and ends with leaders, yeah? Death is something that's going to happen to all of us. They say there are two things certain in life. That's death and taxes.
Yes.
Exactly. And so it's not something we should shy away from. In fact, it's something that we should plan for. I've actually heard an adage that says you're only afraid of dying if you're not living right. And in living right, one of the things you need to do is plan and prepare. So for leaders, I think there's two levels of responsibility. I'd argue maybe even three. The first one is have a framework where in the institution you're in, you have policies that protect your employees, right? And you can do this from an employee benefits position. The second thing is that I think you should walk the talk. So essentially, a leader should be one that has risk management embedded at a personal level. I can tell you that in addition to the sort of policies I get from the office, I have personal policies with Pru. They are more than 7 or 8, and they cover different aspects of my life. Should this go wrong? Should that go wrong? And even if I'm not in employment anymore, I have that to fall on. And then the third one, I suppose, is talking about it with their people so that the people can follow through on what they're doing. But in talking to them, it should be them sort of telling them, I am already doing this, you need to do this as well. So those probably the three things that I would say should be considered.
Okay. And then from a leadership perspective, how can we push for innovation or policy shifts in how we handle funeral expenses and support systems?
It's not easy, right? So death is not a fun thing,
Never a nice thing to talk about.
but
Morbid topic.
yeah, it is. But like I said, it's inevitable, and we need to make it easy all across. And that means making the services easily accessible.
Mhm.
We need to make sure that it's something that can be broken down and understood. Somebody told me something that if you're speaking to somebody and what you're saying can be understood by a 5-year-old, then you're pretty much, good to go. And I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that information is disseminated in a very simple way, and so that it can be assimilated by everybody across society. We're in the world of digital and tech right now, and it's
Right.
important that, like at Prudential now, all our sales consultants are tech enabled. They do their sales using tablets, phones, and so
Right.
that creates an instantaneous sort of way of covering people. And the reverse is also true. When you're making your claims for us, you can do it digitally. That also makes it so much quicker. And so I think that that's one important thing. Another element is making sure that we cover the entire spectrum. So we leave nobody behind. So a person that's a millionaire can still come through and have conversations with us about how they can ring fence themselves and protect the future. But also a person that would fall in, say, the ordinary bracket of society can also be catered for. And sometimes what we like to call micro insurance, or the lower base as well, should have products for them. And I think that Prudential is in that space. And eventually the whole world is moving in that direction as
Right.
well.
There's so much that works elsewhere.
Mm.
Let's talk about the Western world, talk about
Yeah.
America, Europe, Australia. The things that are working there, of course, because of the culture there is a bit different from what we have here.
That's
But
right.
do you have examples of what's working in those countries, those cultures,
Yeah.
that maybe we could learn from and apply here in Zambia as well?
Certainly. I mean, I've said this several times. I can't remember if last time we spoke, I talked about this, but in Africa, maybe I'll start with the West, right? In some Western sort of societies, when a person is in their deathbed, when they call their children in, it's one of those conversations of, look, when I'm gone, you get $200,000 from my policy, you're getting $500,000, you're getting this and that, do the very best you can. In Africa, I'm on my deathbed, I call my kids, the story is different.
Yeah.
No, Vanawanga,
Take care of yourselves.
take care of yourself.
You are the firstborn, so take care of your siblings. And
Mukondane, and this and that. Some of you are not from the same womb, but still love each other. You're all my children. These
all you're left with is
conversations,
blessings, and that's it.
it's only blessings, which in and of itself are not bad.
It's not bad. Yeah.
But I do think there's an element of us starting to elevate the next generations as they come along, right? You have run your race up to this far. You must leave the platform even slightly higher for the next generation. And that's how wealth is built, and not rather distorted. And I think we can learn from that. And, we might talk far and think of the Western world, but even, south of the Limpopo, so you go to South Africa, over 53% of the population has at least a funeral policy. So we might think of these things as only Western notions, but that's not true. So we've seen it around in our own sort of setup. So it's not too far away. But what that means is that when calamity strikes, the WhatsApp groups which are formed are not about how do we bury this person, how do we have a dignified send-off. It's more maybe the arrangements of this is where we're gathering and this is what we're doing. If anybody wants to contribute, well and fine.
Feel free.
But it's not about we can't do anything now without this going on. I think we need to reach a stage in our society where if a person is in gainful employment, be it that they work for themselves or they are truly employed, in the same way that they take measures to protect things which, in my view, are not as valuable as lives, and those would be things like cell phones, everybody will make sure they have a cover, a screen protector. Some people perhaps are even putting 2 screen protectors because they believe their iPhone is so valuable. Let's do that for our lives. Let's bring protection as well. And it doesn't cost a lot of money. It's something that, honestly speaking, if people can set aside money to do certain things, buy data for their phones, indulge in a couple of things, trust me, you can put money aside for your health and protection needs through an insurance company.
Kachiza, if you had a magic wand right now,
Mm,
and I asked this based off my own experience.
that's right.
I worked for an insurance company straight out of college when 2005. I worked for an insurance company for about 6 months.
Nice.
Selling life insurance was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And I would go to the mines in Kitwe because I grew up in Kitwe. I would go to the mines in Kitwe and I would get responses like, "But why should I buy insurance?" And you translate this into Bemba as I say this.
Yeah.
Why should I buy insurance and then leave my wife enjoying life with another man?
Mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
I would try to emphasize the fact that, look, your children, do you care about your children? Would you love them to continue enjoying the same life that they're enjoying now when you're away?
Yeah.
A lot of the miners did not see it that way.
Right.
As far as they're concerned, they're just worried about my wife continuing to enjoy life without me, with another man. But if you had a magic wand, and you've given stats, like in South Africa, it's about 53%. In a population of about 50 million people,
Yeah.
that's high.
Yeah, it's very.
That's very high. Are the numbers the same in Zambia? And if you had a magic wand, what would you change instantly about how people perceive insurance in this country?
That's really nice. Yesterday I was talking to my son, and I can't remember what he wished for, and I told him if wishes were true, horses would fly. But here I am in the world where I now need to make a wish. For me, it would just be the education bit. If people just could really understand how much insurance changes dynamics. And for me, it starts at a policy level, from a government level, right? So when investors are looking to invest in a country, one of the things they look at is the rate of insurance penetration. The higher the insurance penetration, the safer it is as a destination to invest your money in whatever sort of sphere you're looking at. So that's one. Two, one of the things, you asked me for one wish, right? But it's an educational thing and a policy shift, essentially. But, so just that understanding that the more insurance we have, the better destination it is for investment, both for outsiders and insiders, because business continuity is almost guaranteed. Things don't necessarily come crashing because of the lack of insurance. But that would be one, an education thing. But bringing it now from sort of a macro to a micro,
right?
It's building brick by brick, right? Getting people to not just understand, but experience it. Because it's a lot easier for people to have bank accounts, because when you're young, you walked with your parents to the bank, you saw the transaction to the ATM, whatever. And so when it's your turn to have this, you're not really concerned about, no, but what if, will they steal the money? That sort of thing. It's the same with insurance. Once a person has tested the value of life insurance, trust me, that conversation no longer becomes an issue.
Right.
I have seen it firsthand. I had a person that came to the office to talk to me, unannounced, no appointment. And typically I don't necessarily make room for no appointments because my days are packed. But somebody says there's a customer to see you. I said, well, it's a customer, then 5 minutes. I actually told my assistant this: if 5 minutes goes over and this person is still here, please just come through and take them out. This girl comes through and says, I came here just to say thank you.
Wow.
Because when I was in about grade 12 getting into university, my dad died and we were left with nothing. And after a couple of months, Mom was rummaging through his possessions and found he had insurance policy. And she cashed in and paid for my uni up front with that money.
Wow.
She said, I'm done with that. I'm working. I'm supporting my mother and my young sister because of the policy I had from Pru. And I'm here today to buy my own policy. Now, if, more of those stories can just come out. And for me, that's all I would need. Education from people who have actually tested the product. And they can just show that disaster happened, but it wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah.
Then I think it'll be more palatable. It'll be something that we'll just bring into our society. I always joke with my wife that I'm worth more to her dead than alive. And
don't give ideas now.
Well, she doesn't even like the idea of that conversation.
Yeah.
But I want us to reach a level where our society is not set back financially because a breadwinner somewhere is not there. And for people who are thinking, why would my wife enjoy with another man? I mean, why should she suffer with another man if you really love her? You know what I'm saying? So
you're not there. Besides, God has allowed a breakup between a man and a woman when they're married only at death. So she's free to do whatever she wants after that. But at least leave a cushion.
Let's be dignified. And people think of our protection products only for if I die. But life happens in different ways. Through illness, through an accident, you could be critically disabled. And your ability to earn the way it was before may not be there. And I think nothing can crush a human being more than being in a position where I used to provide and now I don't. And here I am sort of permanently in this state where now I'm actually watching the suffering that in my mind I didn't care about. And so if, we are or we claim to be Christians, I think one that doesn't take care of their family is worse than an unbeliever or a heathen, depending on the Bible version you're reading.
Yeah.
I really do believe that this infrastructure that we have through our protection products is one way to protect your family and build on from generations and generations to come.
If I can even speak from my perspective of one of the policies that I've signed up for with Prudential, and I signed up for this because I see certain things in the industry, and no shade to people in the industry that have experienced this in the recent past, but every time somebody dies, and I'll speak for my industry, the entertainment industry, somebody dies and there's calls for contributions on WhatsApp groups and Facebook pages. And I would love to urge any entertainer watching this, because I want to speak for my industry for now. A lot of times we start running around, but guys, there's policies that, like the one I signed up for, I think it's called the, what do you call the one? And the name goes.
What does
the funeral one?
Yeah, the flexi.
Flexi
fair.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that one, guys, I'm paying 2,470 kwacha a month. But should I find myself in a situation where somebody close to me dies, I think I put like 10 or 15 people on that list.
Yeah.
If any one of those dies, God forbid, Prudential will, upon the submission of a death certificate, give me 100,000 kwacha.
Yeah, that's right.
That covers a lot of things. I can buy the casket, feed everybody at the funeral for those 3-4 days that the funeral goes for. So I'd really encourage a lot of people to go for that one. I've signed up for that one. I'm paying 2,400 something per month. And I can already imagine a situation where we won't have to panic when such a day comes.
No, you won't.
I don't like that thing of contributions, whatever. Well, if you want to contribute, do it. But
well and good, yeah.
I want to, be comfortable and, be sorted on when such a situation
I mean,
comes.
It's important that people do that. And I'm happy that you've recognized a need even in the industry that you're in. And I would fully support that. I witnessed something firsthand. We had a family situation where 2 people died at the same time in a car crash. They were brothers.
Okay.
And one had a policy and the other didn't. So when the one who had a policy, when his kicked in, the level of the standard of the funeral that he had was pretty high.
Yeah.
And these are brothers being buried around about the same time. They're my uncles, in-laws from my brother's side.
Right.
And so there was now a need to sort of people to pay in to make sure that both of them are sort of at the same level. But upon that point in time, there was also practical evidence to people that this thing works. And, we don't have to wait for the next sort of tragedy to occur for us to think about it. And we saw more people sort of signing up.
Right.
But absolutely right. There are many things that you can take out in terms of thoughts around when disaster happens and sort of deal with it from a perspective of we miss the person, but we're not suffering to sort of give our person a dignified send-off.
Yeah.
And once we sort of get used to that, there's the next level. So there's the funeral policy, but there's also a whole life policy, which is the lump sum payoff.
Yeah.
That also guarantees a much more sort of longer term financial benefit. So there's the funeral one. But our whole life policies don't even have a cap. So if you want to have 10 million upon your demise, you want to have whatever it is, come see us. And you can be in that position where you have not just a dignified send-off, but a legacy for your family and generations to come.
Right. Just anything you want to add, put some icing on this cake based off what we've discussed today?
I mean, firstly, I just want to say thank you for having had me here. I would like to urge everybody to look out for the rest of the episodes that are coming. We've lined up some very, very interesting speakers, household names to some of you, but what we want is to get their personal take around the health and protection space, especially around protection. We have had a big drive around financial literacy, getting people to know how to do so much for them or for themselves. And now we just want to bring some leaders from around the country to come through, share their views. I would really urge you guys to listen to every other episode that's going to come through. You're going to have really, really amazing conversations. I can tell you that.
Kachiza, thanks for coming through.
Amazing.
It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.
Okay. Guys, to the next episode. Have a lovely day.